What's up, everybody? This is Know Thyself Part 3, and we're going to go over virtues and vices. Virtues are behaviors showing high moral standards and excellence. They are moral qualities or traits that guide individuals towards ethical, honorable, and admirable behaviors. They are character strengths that are universally esteemed across cultures and traditions, promoting personal growth, harmony with others, and a life aligned with principles of justice and goodness. Virtues are the embodiment of the best qualities we can possess. They are the traits and qualities that make us better individuals. Virtues are also considered as character traits that help us combat our vices. Although intangible and lacking physical bodies like humans and objects, their presence can be felt, seen, and perceived in our daily lives. For instance, you can't hold compassion, resilience, or integrity in your hand like you can with a cell phone, bottle, or a pencil. However, they can only be exhibited and demonstrated through your actions and words. They are part of your human soul, and when they stir, they animate the body to move. So, see this mic? I can physically hold this mic, right, with my hands. I can't hold virtues with my hands, right? And we're going to go over some virtues. The only thing I can do with virtues is because virtues are a part of my soul, a part of my body, I can display them through my actions. I can display them with my words, right? So we've got virtues. Number 1, truthfulness, honesty is the opposite of falsehood and lying. The practice of being honest and transparent in communication, consistently conveying accurate information and avoiding deception. Contentment. Contentment is the state of being satisfied and grateful for what one has, without constantly craving more wealth, possessions, or power. That's a big one. A lot of people never reach contentment until they get older in life. Contentment is like one of the most prestigious virtues that you can have, but you don't get there until you get older, or unless if you're extremely wise, then contentment is one of those elusive virtues that not too many people experience. Moderation. Moderation is the practice of exercising restraint and balance in all aspects of life, avoiding excess and indulge. Diligence/hard work. Diligence involves being persistent, committed, and dedicated to one's tasks and responsibilities, actively working towards goals and determination. Confidence. Confidence is the belief in oneself and one's ability without feeling resentment or bitterness towards others' achievements and possessions. Forgiveness. Forgiveness involves letting go of anger and resentment, showing compassion and understanding towards those who have wronged you. Humility. Humility is the quality of modesty, self-awareness, and the recognition of one's limitation without boasting or arrogance. Modesty. Modesty is the avoidance of excess pride or vanity, focusing on inner qualities rather than outward appearances or achievements. Discipline. Discipline is the ability to control one's behaviors, adhere to rules and routines, and consistently work towards goals. Self-control. Self-control is the ability to regulate one's impulses and desires, making conscious choices to prioritize long-term well-being over immediate gratification. Timeliness or promptness. Timeliness involves acting promptly and efficiently, completing tasks and fulfilling obligations without unnecessary delay. Fidelity/faithfulness. Fidelity is the faithfulness and loyalty to one's commitments, including fidelity in relationships and loyalty to principles and ideals. Mercy. Mercy is the compassion and forgiveness shown towards those who are suffering or in need without causing harm or suffering. Selflessness. Selflessness involves prioritizing the needs and well-beings of others over your own desires, demonstrating generosity and compassion. Frugality. Frugality is the practice of using resources wisely, avoiding wasteful spending and unnecessary consumption. Authenticity. This is a huge one, right? Being yourself. Authenticity is the genuine expression of one's belief, values, and emotions without pretense or deceptions. Prudence. Prudence is the exercise of caution, foresight, and careful consideration in decision-making, avoiding unnecessary risk and harm. Number 18, gratitude. Gratitude is the appreciation and acknowledgement of kindness, favors, and blessings received from others, accompanied by a sense of thankfulness. 19, politeness or courtesy. Politeness involves showing respect, consideration, and manners towards others in social interaction, fostering positive communication and harmony. 20, civility. Civility is the respect and courtesy shown towards others in social interactions, promoting mutual respect and understanding. Loyalty. Loyalty is the faithfulness and commitment to one's obligation, promises, and relationships, demonstrating reliability and trustworthiness. Patience. Patience is the ability to tolerate delays, setbacks, or difficulties calmly without frustration, demonstrating resilience and perseverance. Empathy. Empathy is the ability to understand and share the feelings and experiences of others, showing compassion and concern for their well-being. Wisdom. Wisdom is the ability to apply knowledge, experience, and good judgment in decision-making, avoiding folly, which is foolishness, and making sound choices. Resilience. Resilience is the capacity to bounce back from adversity or challenges, demonstrating strength and adaptability in the face of difficulties. Justice. Justice is the fair and impartial treatment of all individuals, ensuring equality and fairness in the rights and opportunities. Courage. Courage is the strength to face fear, danger, or adversity, taking action despite potential risk or uncertainties. Now, and it says, side note right here, this is not a complete list of virtues. Now, the cool thing about virtues, right? If we practice virtues, if we embody virtues, the world would be a lot better. Virtues think of virtues as spiritual gifts that mankind can access and utilize to make oneself better. Because if you make yourself better, right, then everybody around you, right, are not in danger of your actions, right? If I practice truthfulness, modesty, discipline, self-control, justice, courage, empathy, patience, these are things that make you a good individual, right? If I show you respect, I won't cross your boundaries, right? Because I treat you with kindness, I treat you with politeness, I treat you with courtesy, right? If we practice virtues, the world would be a lot better. That is the only way a person could get better. By embodying and practicing virtues. This is the only way to become a good person, by practicing virtues, right? So human virtues are the habits that uphold moral behavior, restrain negative emotions, and keep one, and it says, and keep one away from wrongdoing. This is right here. If you practice virtues, and there's a whole ton of virtues, right? And the cool thing about virtues, they do not belong to one culture. They do not belong to one race. They are universal. Because every culture, every language has these virtues. It don't matter if you speak French, Swahili, Spanish, Japanese, Russian, Portuguese, Zulu, Haitian Creole. It don't matter if you speak whatever language, you have virtues in your language. That's the beauty about virtues, because they're universal, right? If you can practice these virtues, you become a decent human being. You become a good individual, and they keep you from wrongdoing. You see? But it's easier said than done. But these are the tools we have in order to strengthen the soul. These are the tools we have to, you can think of them as spiritual gifts, right? The more virtues we uphold, the more godlike or elevated consciously we become. With commitment and practice, individuals can transform their negative character traits into positive ones. To achieve this, one must be willing to acknowledge their negative tendencies and take responsibilities for their actions. It is important to recognize that these vices can cause harm to oneself, as well as to one's family, friends, and community. To overcome these negative traits, one must take steps to suppress, suffocate, or eliminate them altogether. Through dedication and hard work, individuals can make great strides towards becoming a better version of themselves, right? Vices. Vices, on the other hand, are the negative qualities or traits that are deemed harmful, immoral, and socially unacceptable. They are the driving forces behind moral degeneracy, eroding our ethical foundations and leading us down a path of self-destruction. They are seen as the antithesis, right, of virtues. You could say antithesis or antithesis, right? The link between vices and moral decay is rooted in the idea that indulging in negative behaviors can erode the ethical fabric of individuals and society as a whole. Vices can lead to loss of self-control, which can result in harm to oneself and others, damaging relationships, and even leading to criminal activity. When vices manifest, they lead to negative thoughts, harmful behavior, destructive habits and patterns, and deplorable actions. Vices must be controlled at all costs, for they corrupt the human soul if left unchecked and unchallenged from within. The more vices we uphold, the more carnal, immoral, and wicked we become. Right? Falsehood involves intentionally misleading others by providing false and misleading information lacking honesty and sincerity. Greed, an insatiable desire for wealth, possessions, or power, leading to dissatisfaction with what one has and a constant pursuit for more. Gluttony involves indulging in something beyond reasonable limits, lacking restraint and balance, often leading to negative consequences. Sloth or laziness or indolence, the avoidance of hard work or effort, characterized by a lack of persistence, commitment, or dedication to tasks or responsibilities. Envy and jealousy. 5, right? A resentful longing for someone else's possessions, qualities, or achievements, accompanied by feelings of discontent and bitterness. Wrath. Intense, violent anger and hatred. Pride. Excessive beliefs in one's ability or accomplishments, leading to a sense of superiority and a disregard for others, lacking humility and self-awareness. Vanity, excessive pride in one's appearance, achievements, or possessions, often accompanied by a preoccupation with superficial qualities and a lack of genuine humility. Indiscipline, a lack of self-control and commitment characterized by inconsistency, irresponsibility, or an inability to adhere to rules and routines. Addiction, a compulsive dependence on substances or activities leading to a loss of control, negative consequences, and the inability to prioritize responsibilities. Procrastination, the habit of delaying or postponing tasks leading to inefficiency, missed opportunities, and an increased stress. Infidelity / adultery, the act of being unfaithful and disloyal to a committed partner involving betrayal of trust and breaking promises. Cruelty, right, involves causing harm, punishment, and it says involve causing harm, punishment, or suffering without pity or remorse. Selfishness or stinginess, right? A lack of concern for others' needs and interests, prioritizing one's own desire and welfare at the expense of others. Unwillingly to share with others, tight-fisted. Now, there's a difference between when you self-prioritize yourself, right, and selfishness. When you prioritize yourself, you do not harm others in the process, right? If I'm working on myself to build myself up, right, I do not have to hurt others in the process. Selfishness now is different because I hurt others, I help myself, I benefit myself at the expense of other people. This is why it's considered a vice, right? Because I don't care who I hurt in the process. It's all about me, 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 me. There's a difference between selfishness and when you self-prioritize yourself. There's a big difference. Extravagance, excessive and wasteful spending characterized by the lack of restraint and mindfulness in financial matters. Hypocrisy, the practice of professing beliefs or virtues that one does not hold or follow, often accompanied by deceitful and insincere behavior. Recklessness, the lack of caution and consideration for consequences, often leading to impulsive or irresponsible actions. Ingratitude, the failure to appreciate or acknowledge kindness, favors, or blessings received from others, often accompanied by a sense of entitlement or indifference. Rudeness, lack of respect, consideration, and manners towards others, often manifesting in impolite or offensive behavior. Incivility, lack of respect and consideration for others in social interactions, often resulting in rude and disrespectful behavior. Disloyalty, betrayal of trust and commitment involving unreliability and a failure to fulfill promises or obligations. Impatience, the inability to tolerate delays, setbacks, or difficulties, often leading to frustration, agitation, and rash decision-making. Apathy. Apathy is the lack of interest, concern, or emotions towards others, feelings, or experiences, often leading to indifference and a failure to connect emotionally. Foolishness, lack of good judgment or common sense, often resulting in poor decisions, recklessness, and avoidable mistakes. Fragility, right? It says susceptibility to being easily broken, damaged, or overwhelmed by adversity or challenges. lacking resilience or inner strength. Injustice, violation of fairness, equity, and rights involving unfair treatment or discrimination based on prejudice or bias. Cowardice, lack of bravery or courage to face fear, danger, or adversity. Side note, there are more vices not mentioned on this list. I understand that nobody is perfect. Therefore, we should not feel offended or ashamed or guilty if we possess certain vices. Similarly, we should not shame others for their vices. Rather, it is important to be aware of our flaws and work towards correcting our behavior and controlling our habits. We should also be encouraged to check and correct our friends, family, and other people so they can change their negative behaviors as well. These vices are detrimental to our souls and can have a cancerous, harmful impact on our communities. If left unchecked, they can lead to moral decay and ethical erosion, which can be problematic for Ubuntu, the well-being of humanity. Default settings. Many individuals argue that vices are not inherently evil. It is the excessive practice of these vices that poses a problem. They contend that it is natural to exhibit behaviors like pride, greed, or jealousy, advocating for the idea that prioritizing oneself can be justified in certain contexts. However, this perspective often emerges from a world steeped in imbalance, a society shaped by time and human behavior that has veered away from the foundational principles of empathy and cooperation. Instead of striving to return to the inherent factory settings or default settings of humanity, characterized by mutual support and understanding, many people speak of a place of survival instincts and to get ahead of others in response to the harsh realities of contemporary life. In a world where exploitation and abuse is rampant, and where desensitization to violence has become the commonplace, it is understandable why individuals might advocate for the adoption of certain vices as a means for self-protection. This necessity arises from the desire to endorse This necessity arises not from a desire to endorse immorality, but rather from an instinctual need to navigate a landscape fraught with danger and betrayal. The normalization of such vices is often a reflection of societal decay, where virtues, our values, that once governed human interaction have been overshadowed by our culture of individualism and self-interest. Ultimately, this situation presents a profound ethical dilemma. Can we reconcile the human tendency towards vice with the aspiration for a more harmonious existence? Or is promoting moderation in these vices just a practical way to cope with a world that has lost its moral direction? This inquiry not only challenges our understanding of human nature, but it also calls for a deeper examination of the societal structures that shape our actions and beliefs. If we had never encountered betrayal, exploitation, cruelty, and hatred, there would be little reason to justify behaviors like selfishness, rudeness, and greed as a form of self-defense, right? In a world free from negative experiences, the advocacy for these vices would likely be unnecessary, as people would be more inclined to rely on virtues like compassion and cooperation to navigate their lives. The concept of tit for tat illustrates how individuals often respond to others' action with similar behavior, especially in competitive and conflict situations. In a world rife with betrayal and cruelty, this mindset can perpetuate cycles of negativity. However, if the foundation of interactions were rooted in trust and kindness, we could break away from the reactive mentality of you hit me, I hit you back, and build a more constructive and cooperative society. If everyone returned back to basics and embody virtues, there would be no need to rely on vices because a little mold corrupts the whole bread. Right? People only use vices and justify vices as a form of self-defense because this world is cruel. That's the only reason why people make the argument, oh, it's okay to be prideful. It's okay to be selfish here and there. It's okay to be, have a little gluttony, a little, they advocate for certain vices. But if we all practice virtues, there would be no need to rely on vices. That's the problem. So the thing is, you've been hurt, and because you want to defend yourself, now you feel like you got to practice vices in order to defend yourself and build a wall of defense. But the only problem is, when you use vices, you hurt other people. So you become just like the person that hurts you. That's the problem with vices. And the thing is, when you practice vices, even just a little bit, a little mold corrupts the whole bread. Eventually, when you use these vices, eventually what's going to happen? You're going to use more and more and more and more. And it's going to expand, right? To the point where it becomes part of your character. And you can't even distinguish between right and wrong any longer. Because you've relied so much on vices, it becomes who you are. You've developed a pattern. You develop a habit using these vices. And it's extremely hard to break. Extremely hard to break. Right? When moral degeneracy happens, human resorts to using vices as a way to adapt to a transformed cold world. But they should not adapt. They should fight back with virtues. In times of moral decline, a sense of powerlessness can settle in, leading people to indulge in vices as a way to numb themselves or escape their environment. Vices seem like an easy coping mechanism, offering momentary relief from feelings of disillusionment or despair. They have a mentality that if you can't beat them, join them, right? This is what many people think. Oh, this world is evil. This world, many people are doing it. I can't beat them, so let me go join them, right? Oh, everybody's using pride, so I could use pride too. Everybody is using lust, so why don't I use lust too? Everybody is being selfish, so why I can't be selfish too? You see what happens? You see what happens? How this one mold grows and festers throughout all of humanity? You see that, right? If somebody hurts you, guess what? Oh, now I feel the offense, and I'm going to start hurting other people too. You see? It's like a virus. It's like a virus. And the world only becomes colder and colder and colder and colder. That's what vices do, right? It says, however, this approach ultimately deepens the problem, fueling the same decay that people may feel they have no control over. By relying on vices, people become complicit in the erosion of values, accepting the state of things rather than challenging it. A person constantly lies to you. Challenge them. Say, stop lying. Tell me the truth. Right? You don't succumb to dishonesty. You challenge it. If somebody's wrath, right? If somebody's angry, furious at you, constantly, right? Hatred only fuels more hatred. Wrath only fuels more wrath. Do the opposite of that, right? Because fire only fuels more fire. Right? So instead of using wrath, if somebody's angry, forgive them instead. Show them love, right? If love is not possible, then empathy, right? Empathize with them. Understand where their pain is coming from, right? Acknowledge their pain, right? Walk with them, show them compassion, show them mercy, right? All of these vices that I've used is ways to combat somebody who is angry, right? All of these vices, right? If somebody's not authentic, right? They're hypocrites, right? They have like they profess to be one way, but they actually are a different way. Challenge them. Tell them to be more authentic, be who you are, because what you're doing in that moment of inauthenticity, and like when you're inauthentic, right? When you have a hypocrisy in you, all you're doing is eroding yourself. So tell them, have integrity, have authenticity, be truthful, be honest, right? Lust is not good for anybody. We see it. We see it, right? We've got sexual diseases, right? Because of lust. We can't control ourselves, right? We got sexual diseases. We've got broken families. We got children being raised without their fathers, right? It's hurting everybody. People are an emotional wreck because of lust. Discipline. You don't want to get hurt. You don't want to get sick. Discipline. Discipline. Don't join people. It only makes things worse. All you're doing is adding to the statistics of STDs. You add into the statistics of broken families. You add into the statistics of children being raised without their fathers. That's all you're doing. You add into the statistics of divorce. So practice modesty. Practice discipline to avoid these negative cycles. You see how vices can be fought with, you see how virtues can fight and contend against vices. You see that? All right. Adapting to moral decay in this sense is like looking at a world filled with trash and clutter, then choosing to coexist with it and throwing more trash on the ground rather than clearing it out. It's a passive acceptance of what is harmful, a way of rationalizing that this is just how things are. These attitudes create a kind of stagnation where people resign themselves to surviving in the middle of disorder instead of arising above it. Living alongside these messes can even normalize them, causing individuals to lose sight of a cleaner, higher standard of existence. When adaptation takes the form of resignation, it becomes a form of surrender, letting decay take root unchecked. But fighting back is different. It's about facing the mess head on, one piece at a time, refusing to accept a world littered with moral compromises. Just as one would take action to clean up a cluttered space, people can actively work to remove the toxic habits and influences that moral degeneracy brings. This path requires effort, dedication, and a willingness to confront uncomfortable truths, but it allows people to reclaim agency over their environment and values. Virtues serve as the antidote to vices, not by merely coexisting, but actively countering and eradicating them. Fighting back means choosing qualities like courage, generosity, integrity that don't offer a quick fix but cultivate real, lasting change. Greed is countered by generosity, right? Pride is tempered by humility. Lust is controlled through discipline. Wrath is softened by patience. Envy is quelled by contentment. Jealousy retreats in the face of wisdom. Virtues don't just help individuals rise above the mess, they inspire others to create ripples of change. Living virtuously builds inner strength and resilience, allowing people to contribute positively to their surroundings rather than passively mirroring and indulging in chaos. In fighting back with virtues, people demonstrate that a more grounded, compassionate, and disciplined life is possible. Even in a world that seems steep in decay, it's a choice to be part of the solution to actively shape the world rather than be shaped by its worst aspects. Okay? Envy is a huge one. Do you know how many people die because of envy? Do you know how many people's lives that are taken away because of other envious individuals that are jealous? Because when you're jealous of something, right, you want somebody's possessions. You want to be like person. You want to have their traits, right? And if you're jealous or envious of somebody's possessions, that envy festers and manifests into what? Theft, stealing, brutality, abuse. So you could take their possessions, right? But had you been content from the beginning, had you practiced hard work and diligence, you wouldn't be envious of the next man's possessions because you would have your own possessions, right? Why be angry at the next man? Why be jealous and envy at the next man when you too have your own hands and feet? When you too have your own minds to think, your body to move, so you can work to earn whatever it is that you desire. You see? So, this one is one of my favorites. Balancing virtues with virtues. This is key, right? Virtues stand as the guiding lights that lead individuals towards a life of balance, harmony, and fulfillment. They are not merely lofty ideals, but practical tools that shape character, influence behavior, and create a framework for ethical living. The true power of virtues lies in their capacity to balance each other, ensuring that no single virtue, when left unchecked, becomes a source of harm. This is another thing too, because a lot of people like to say, oh, when you use excessive virtues, it can lead to danger. So this is why you balance it with vices. I'm here to tell you that's nonsense. That's nonsense. So if somebody has too much humility, you don't balance it with pride as a way to equalize it. No, you balance humility with other virtues. That's the more pragmatic and beneficial choice. And I'm going to explain to you. While virtues are inherently positive, they must be balanced by other virtues to prevent them from becoming destructive. Like, for instance, too much kindness can get you exploited, right? So instead of using kindness, too much kindness, supplement that. Don't supplement that with cruelty or stinginess. Supplement that with wisdom. That's a better choice, right? It says, for instance, truth, right? A fundamental virtue can become cold and even malicious when it's not tempered with compassion. A truthful person who lacks compassion may wield truth as a weapon, cutting deeply into others without regard for the emotional harm inflicted. Truth, when being balanced with compassion, becomes a force for growth and healing rather than pain and division. So you can meet somebody, and tell them, hey, your breath is stinking, right? You told the truth, but that was a little bit harsh. Now the person is, self-aware that their breath is stinking. They feel self-conscious about themselves, right? But instead of saying your breath stinks, right, you can supplement that truth with compassion. Be like, hey, brother, I'm coming to you out of love. Perhaps you need a gum. Perhaps you need, they might take it offensively, of course, but there's a difference. The approach is different, right? You can say, hey, brother, like, your breath is not fresh, right? Instead of saying it stinks, you can rephrase your words, make it different, right? Supplement these things. Supplement these virtues with other virtues. There's no easy way to tell somebody that their breath stinks. But there's ways to do it maliciously, and there's ways to do it in a compassionate way, right? Instead of saying to somebody, you're fat, I think you need to go work out in the gym. There's a difference, you see? Instead of saying you're stupid, right? You need to study more. You need to study more. You need to gain more knowledge, right? There's a difference in what you say, right? It's not what you say, it's how you say it. Select the words carefully. Similarly, kindness without wisdom can lead to vulnerability and exploitation. While kindness is essential for fostering connection and empathy, it must be paired with discernment to avoid being taken advantage of. Wisdom ensures that kindness is directed where it most needed and that boundaries are maintained to protect oneself from harm. This interplay highlights the necessity of balancing virtues to create a well-rounded person. You see? When you have wisdom, you're more selective of who you display your kindness to. You don't display your kindness to everybody. You don't. Because some people will take advantage of you. Some people are predators. Some people are parasites, right? Some people are ungrateful. But with wisdom, you understand, okay, this person I'm not going to help. They can help themselves. This person is a scam. This person is lying. This person I do not trust. You're more selective of who to help and who to display your kindness towards. You see? When justice is enforced without mercy, it becomes detached from human experience. It seeks to punish, correct, and balance wrongs, but it does so in a way that fails to consider the broader context of a person's actions. While justice without mercy can seem fair on the surface, imposing punishment based solely on the crime often lacks the flexibility needed to account for human imperfection, growth, and redemption. Right? This is huge. Justice, right? We all want revenge. We all want to, punish people for what they've done wrong. But do we have the full context of why they committed crime? Are we punishing them for the sake of punishment? Right? But where's the mercy involved? Okay, somebody does wrong. They did their time in prison. Now that they did their time, they finished their time. Now that they're out of prison, why do they continue to suffer a penalty for their past crime, which they paid for? Where's the mercy? There's so many prisoners that come out of prison, they can't find jobs. Where's the mercy? Why you keep holding their sins against them? They did their time already. Where's the mercy? Their sins should be absolved because they did their time. But you keep holding their sins against them and cause recidivism, right? You cause them to resort to old habits because there's no mercy involved. You see? Humility. While essential for personal growth and connection, can be detrimental when practiced without balance, leading to self-deprecation or lack of self-worth. When humility is balanced with dignity, individuals remain grounded and open to learning while also standing firm in their own self-worth and setting healthy boundaries. Without dignity, humility may lead to shrinking oneself and tolerating mistreatment. Right? But with dignity, humility becomes a force for grace and service without self-erasure. This balance fosters a person who can humbly serve others without losing themselves, maintaining both self-respect and vulnerability. Together, humility and dignity create a confident, graceful character, one that gives generously while never compromising their own values, fostering respect and authentic connections in all areas of life. Courage without wisdom is a dangerous force, often driven by a blind impulse rather than informed conviction. While courage is necessary for taking action, facing fear, and pursuing what seems daunting, Without guidance of knowledge, it can become reckless. A courageous individual who lacks understanding may charge forward without regard for the consequences, misjudging risk, or overlooking crucial details that could lead to harm. Knowledge, in this sense, is the compass that directs courage, ensuring that bold actions are calculated and purposeful rather than impulsive and destructive. I believe that to be truly a well-rounded individual, we must balance our virtues with other virtues. This means embodying the full spectrum of virtues, understanding their interconnectedness, because virtues are interconnected, right? And apply them in ways that promote collective well-being. It is not enough to simply cultivate one virtue and neglect the others. True spiritual development requires an understanding of how each esteemed value interacts with others, creating harmony in our actions in our lives. So that was Know Thyself, Virtues and Vices. If you like this video, please subscribe. Please give me a thumbs up. Please comment down below. If you agree with me. Even if you disagree with me, comment down below. No problem. Peace.